It's time for the Glendale Devotional Podcast, a 5-minute weekday devotional ministry from Glendale Baptist Church in Glenn, Mississippi. The speaker is John Haynes. Now, here is Brother John.
What do you know about Moses? When you hear his name, we probably think of how he parted the Red Sea, or that he, as a baby, was placed in a basket by his mother and rescued by Pharaoh's daughter. Many of us might still remember Sunday school lessons that we learned from when we were children about this powerful, albeit unsure, and most humble leader. Today we begin looking at this man named Moses, various aspects of his life, and how he represents each one of us from time to time. In studying for this week of programs, I found an article from the Lexham Bible Dictionary that, in my opinion, perfectly encapsulates his life in a very concise way. It says regarding Moses, his name is born Egyptian, or he who is drawn from water. He was the brother of Aaron the high priest and Miriam. He was the leader of the Hebrew people in the 13th century BC. He was chosen by God to lead the Hebrew people from Egypt to Canaan. He spoke to God face to face as one speaks to a friend, according to Exodus 33:11. He receives the law of God on Mount Sinai and builds a tabernacle according to God's instruction. Moses acts as the intermediary between God and the people for 40 years, but dies before entering the Promised Land. This is just a brief synopsis of his life. In order to fully understand the time in which Moses was born, we have to read a key passage from Exodus chapter 1, verses 6 through 9 state, "And Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. But the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we." So we begin in the country of Egypt. Just to catch up on some history, Joseph was beloved by his father Jacob. So much so that Joseph's brothers hated Joseph. As he was wearing his coat of many colors while they were working in the field, they saw him coming and made a plan to do away with Joseph. So they threw him into a pit and went to talk about what to do with him. Meanwhile, they decided not to kill him, but to sell him to a group of travelers. The people who bought Joseph sold him into the Egyptians. So in the providence of God, Joseph was sold as a slave in Egypt. For years, God had blessed Joseph, and years after they did away with their brother, they found out who this powerful man of authority in Egypt was, whom they had been dealing with. Joseph had the favor of the Pharaoh at that time, so Israel moved to Egypt, where they stayed for many years. Then again, Exodus chapter 1, verse 8 occurred. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. The deal of favor was off, and the persecution of the people of Israel began. So what is the application of all of this for us today? There will always be enemies to the people of God. How many of us remember fondly growing up where even if there was not an acceptance of the Christian faith, there was at least a respect for it? But today, I fear we may be facing days in which those who claim the name Christ will suffer persecution. In fact, the Bible promises that in the last days. Jesus said, "And you will be hated by all for my name's sake, but he who endures to the end will be saved." So just as God watched over his people at the time of Moses, God continues to watch over his people today. Times were not friendly for the people of God when Moses was born. Times and the people of this world may grow increasingly contemptible toward the name of Jesus. But remember, God always makes a way. When there seems to be no way, God is sovereign. God reigns, and he will bring forth his glory through his people as the noonday sun. We'll continue talking about Moses tomorrow. Thanks for listening today. I just want to remind you that all of our programs for this season can be found at our website, gdponline.net. I hope that you'll meet me back tomorrow right here. Have a good and godly day.
Thank you for listening each afternoon at 12:05 on Fun 91 for the Glendale Devotional Podcast, presented by Glendale Baptist Church. Their mailing address is P.O. Box 70, Glenn, Mississippi 38846.